tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.ElaineIrelandTarotMaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
Look who's back is Francesca Fleming. Last time we were together, we got so wrapped up in the wonderful work that she does, how she does it, why she does it, how she maintains sanity while she's challenged in doing all of this. She is a healer, and she had given me the name that she wanted the first issue, the first conversation to be about, and it was called Issues in the Tissues. And she gave me 3 things: types of people who heal, which I thought was a interesting comment. Types of people who heal. 4 categories of dis-ease. And the third one, when is self-healing good, or when is it an avoidance? I loved those 3. Those could be chapters in a book. Have you already written the book?
I am in the process of writing something. It's been really slow. I start writing and then I get shy about it and go, no one wants to hear my stuff. And I just go flipping back and forth. But anyhow.
You know what I forgot to do, Dean, is introduce myself. So I'm hoping you can splice this. If not, just splice me out and I'll put it in front of it. Anyway, this is Elaine Ireland. Welcome back to Conversations with the Ancients. And look who we have with us today. Francine Fleming. She decided to come back.
Oh, Francesca. You're confusing me with Francine Caruso. Francesca.
You know, Francesca, you are one of the few Francescas, in spite of all of the Italian people I have met in my lifetime, that I have met. I didn't go to school with a Francesca, but Elaine's were like that for a long time too. Elaine's disappeared. Now they're coming back. So I apologize. My apologies.
Okay.
Dean, I hope you can rattle that out. If not, tell me and I'll fix it. Okay. Now, welcome back, Francesca Fleming. So good to have you back.
Hi, Elaine.
What you do.
Well, Elaine, I work as a healer, a medical intuitive, spiritual path worker, and a little bit of mediumship I throw in there when it's needed. But basically, I've been doing this work since I was a little girl. I learned from spirit. And what we're going to do now is probably, like you said, you wanted to talk about the issues in your tissues. We're going to go for that, right? We're going to go for that. Okay. So the issues in the tissues are interesting. I use that analogy because, all our auras, all our bodies can sometimes look like Pigpen and Schultz Peanuts cartoon, because they're all, they have all sorts of stuff hanging out there, as I've spoken to about before. But issues in the tissues show up really interestingly with all the categories with all the Dean, cut that out, categories. With all the people I've worked on, I could say when I give suggestions from the divine, 70% of the time it works for 70% of the population. When the divine is directly infiltrating into me to look at somebody specifically, it's over 90% accurate according to the people I work with, not me. My clients gave me that feedback. So with all the people I've worked with, we're talking over 1,000 people a year for all my years. There are different types of people who heal and who don't heal. There are different categories of dis-ease. And sometimes people are trying their own self-healing and it works, and sometimes it doesn't, which means they're avoiding something. So issues are interesting. Issues denote that we've got something in our limiting belief system. In other words, something in our subconscious, something with how we are seeing the world or perceiving ourselves that's causing an imbalance in the physiology. Would you agree? That's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the I mostly see them as, like I said, imbalances in the body leading to self-limiting beliefs or wrong perceptions. And sometimes I see it as a karmic pattern. In other words, a repeating pattern that's been picked up, what I call generational karma from family. It usually happens between conception and 7 years of life. And then there's what I call a little karma that people have drawn an illness to themselves because they just didn't think or believe that eating a certain way would be better for their body until it was too late. All right. So issues in the tissues are really interesting because besides the limiting beliefs and the perceptions, they sometimes get attached to the chakras. And would you say, have you seen people with things stuck in their chakras?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We all do. Even as healers, we have it, right? It's like, okay,
Right.
we've got to. Why? Because of my theory of resonance. If we don't know if we don't have a little flavor of what they're going through, how can we identify it? How can we be of service? Which is interesting. So, at least as a healer, from a healer's point of view, that's how I see it. So, now I did say I was going to get to the types of people who heal. All right. Yeah, didn't I? Okay. First of all, their health concern or their emotional concern has no karma attached to it. That's easy. All right. That's an easy one. That's like, oh, you need to do this, this, and that, and you'll be fine. Boom, they're fine. You need to eat this food, drink this water, use this crystal, and it works. Okay. Next, the next category of people who heal are those who take responsibility for where their body is at the moment, no matter what's happened in the past. Yes, they've chunked the past instead of blaming this and that, creating themselves to be a victim. They become victimless. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Those people I love because they can heal the most gnarly things on the planet. And sometimes they're given that challenge just to prove it to others. It's really wild. So I was thinking of a person I healed. His cholesterol was over 500. And he was allergic to every medication to bring the cholesterol down on the planet. So he called me in a panic, found me somehow. By the way, I don't advertise a lot, so people find me anyhow. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so we talked about what was going on. And I said, okay, look, you've got to change this in your foods. having cooked oils with a starch in for you is creating the cholesterol. And cooked oils, I don't care if it's avocado, I don't care if it's coconut oil, I don't care if it's olive oil, don't matter. It's in a frying pan, even to saute something. It's a cooked oil. You have it with rice, bread, or whatever. You're up Schitt's Creek. And he's like, oops. Oh, well, I swore.
That's all right.
Okay.
We're human, right?
Okay. Well, his wife was madder than a hornet at me. And he told me about this after the second meeting. And I said, look, you're going to keep eating the food your wife is making, then that's on you. Nothing's going to change. Or you can stop and just tell her how you want things and make sure you get your own lunches. Even if she's still packing you a lunch, you know it's wrong for you, go out and buy something else. Well, that's what he started doing. And he finally convinced her to change. She was madder than a hornet. Well, bottom line, after about 6 months, his cholesterol went down to 300. He lost some weight. He was healthier than ever. The doctors were happy because he was out of a major danger zone. His wife was still mad at me, though. I have no idea what that was about, but there we go. But he healed because he decided to not be a victim. He chose, even though he didn't want to hurt his wife, he chose to take the lunches she packed, toss them out, and buy the correct lunch he had to have. Yeah, so, he wouldn't eat food that she fried. He didn't mean to hurt her, but he had to take charge and responsibility of his life and stop blame. He didn't blame her because she was from another country. That was how she was used to cooking. And so what are you going to do? Okay. Then you've got the people who are, partnered with their soul.
I like that term.
Yeah, when you're partnered with
your soul.
Yeah, when you're partnered with your soul, basically, these are what most of Christianity and other religions call miracles. But basically, what has happened is the person has turned it over to God, turned it over to their soul, is allowing their soul to lead them in perfect faith that they will get better, that this is something that they're just going through. And if they feel, and this is where what's really interesting, when you're partnered with your soul, you might suddenly get flashes of this feels right and this doesn't feel right. Your gut instinct kicks in. Or this food, I don't think I should eat anymore, and you put it aside. It doesn't matter if you're psychic or not. You start developing an empathy or a yes, no, it's good for me, it's wrong for me kind of system in your body where your soul is trying to guide you because you're listening. So partnering with the soul is huge. And actually, most illnesses is about your soul trying to wake up your consciousness to begin the partnership. They really are. And it's such an interesting thing. Such an interesting thing. Okay. And the other category of people healing is it's a mental creation. It's a mind creation. And they decided to change their mind, change their belief. And suddenly the illness goes away. All right. So those are the 4 types of people that heal easily. Heal easily. Isn't that interesting? Any questions on? Can you think of anything you need to know more than that?
I was just trying to think, what would the public like to know? That last one, we're going to get some kickback on the last type.
The mental emotional. Okay, so mental emotional mindset. Okay. This goes back into the biology of belief, which is a book that's been written, right? Dr. Bruce Lipton wrote things like this. A few other, Joe Dispenza talks about things like this. It's a biology of belief. You could carry a belief without you knowing it, because you may have picked it up from your mom or dad when you were a little kid, that you're always accident prone because they're accident prone. And so you'll always be accident prone. And you'll get into more and more little weirdo accidents all the time. That's just a belief in your mindset that you were impressed upon by your family's behavior. That can be changed. Once you change it, will you be accident prone? Probably not. Most likely not. Actually, I've seen it. The other one is the belief that I had one client who believed she was allergic to water, which is very interesting because you can't really be allergic to water, but that was her belief. So anytime she drank water, she would throw up, etc. Now, I guess in the old days, we'd call it psychosomatic. Maybe? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. But it was also attached to her solar plexus, her solar plexus chakra, which meant how she thought about herself. The brain part, the subconscious part, showed me that that there was a connection between her mother and water that has set in. So I had to talk to her about her mother and discovered that her mother used to throw water at her when she was misbehaving.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So it took a lot of, and this was about 20 years ago before I knew about other modalities to help this belief. But we worked on it. It took about eight to 9 sessions. And she had to do her work. Her work was with affirmations. Her work was with believing herself strong and not a victim. Her work was with water has nothing to do with her mother. Basically, we had to chop that trauma apart from water. We had to work on her trauma. Did I have her also work with a mental health therapist who understood energy work? Yes, I did, because I am not a mental health therapist. I can lead you on the affirmations. I can lead you where your soul wants you to go. I can see the thoughts. I can help them bury it. Well, bottom line, in the end, she could drink water again and not throw up, not have a dysentery, none of that. And she's still fine today. So that is an example, an extreme example, but an example.
And a good one.
Yeah.
And a good one.
Yeah. So that's the type of people who heal, who are willing to heal and do it. I have found one group of people that's really difficult to heal. And they're people that are so invested. Well, how do I say it? Their story, their own belief that if they change that dis-ease they have, they will change who they are forever. Mm-hmm. The fear of losing who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that comes down to, well, how comfortable are you living this way? How comfortable, how much peace is there in your world? Now, is it worth not having your story anymore? Because that's really what it is. We're giving up the stories we believe about ourselves, aren't we? Yeah. Anyhow, that's a hard one. That's a real hard one. Okay. And there are, of course, I get those clients sometimes who just want to prove that I'm wrong. And I'm like, okay, those I can usually tell right off the bat. And I'll say, oh, I don't want to charge you. Because what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? All right. Okay. And I've grown enough that those challenges no longer bother me to a great degree. So, yeah, we all do that. Anyhow.
Wait, I want to talk about that as a fellow professional.
Okay.
When we have people come to us and we know it's not going to work. I was telling you a while ago, I send them on to other people, but they either keep coming back, or why in the beginning do we need to tell them to go on to somebody else? Why are they put in our energy, are we being a traffic cop in a sense? Are we a stop on the way? Did they take a wrong turn or did they take a right turn? Are we being responsible to getting them to the correct address via some karma between the two of us?
Mostly it's all of that, and one more. Sometimes it's a test for us, the healers or the readers. Sometimes it's a test by divine saying, are you going to try to do something you're not supposed to? I've had that test. Okay. And the next is I love the one that we're the traffic cop. Absolutely. Sometimes we're a traffic cop. And then we've got the other one where it's, how do I say it? It's the desperation of the people who want to heal, reaching out to anyone and everything, and they're going from healer to healer to healer, but not really absorbing what they need. I'm sure you've had that. Yeah.
Yes.
When I see someone who's healer shopping or reader shopping, I'm like, yeah, just go ahead. They already told you, go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you're ready, don't bother, because it takes a lot. When you read the wrong person or you get stuck with someone like that, man, it can be an energy drain.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We almost never talk. Healers very rarely tell their clients how drained they are energetically. I don't think they realize that holding a sacred space of healing or reading means that we are surrounding their aura with our aura in order to create a peace or a balance between the two, to allow an opening to happen in their entire being. Not just their physiology. We're opening their aura, their emotional field, mental field, all of that. And our souls are almost communicating. And that can be very tiring on a psychic. In fact, when I was training people to do the work I do, or even training just to be readers and stuff, they would complain about this after 3 or 4 times of 3 or 4 clients they worked on. They get really tired. I'm like, yeah, your potassium's gone. Take some electrolytes. And they're like, potassium's gone. And then the other one would say, oh, but I get really jazzed and I can't calm down. I said, yeah, you need salt. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, all this energy work affects our nervous systems. It affects the neurons of the person sending and receiving energy. And I don't know if you've ever seen a neuron, but it looks kind of like a fork going into a spoon to another fork going into a spoon. Okay. Well, where that fork is, if the energy is flowing through too much, the fork closes around the spoon. The energy is flowing just right, it opens. To keep the floodgates open, you need potassium to allow more of the divine energy and the divine intuition to keep flowing through your system, because it does affect the body, not just the aura. And if you ever get overwhelmed, you have salt or meat. Meat is a salty food to shut it down. Just what I've learned. So all those out there who are empaths and are overwhelmed, go have some salt.
That does not mean open the salt bottle and pour it down your system and make yourself sick.
A little fingerful. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. So I think I mentioned I wanted to talk about the 4 categories of dis-ease. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Okay. The 4 categories of dis-ease. Your mental thinking, perceptions, etc. The one that you thought people have a problem. Okay. There's that. There's victimhood. Again, that's sort of a category, but with your life experiences, everything seems to be dropping on you all the time. You never seem to get anywhere. that is a pattern of victimhood that could cause disease and actual illness in the body. Then there is karma. In other words, your soul has planned it out to wake you up through some wisdom you need to learn going through that illness, that experience. Okay. And then what's the fourth one? Oh, the fourth one's easy. Oh, the fourth one. Okay. Yeah. Call it the stupid human trick. Actually, my brother coined that name, stupid human trick, where you know better than to have vodka on top of tequila on top of that wine at the party, but you still did it. Okay. Right? I call it yeah, I love my brother's coining of that word. I said, Roger, that's unkind. He said, yeah, but it's true. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I think I like your brother.
Oh, he's a straight shooter. Okay. Okay. So those 4 categories of diseases, that's what I'm calling the base of it, the base of all disease. They're just general broad categories. There are many, many different ones in between, but they're all fixable. And I love the 4th category, the stupid human trick, because that's so easy to fix.
Excuse me.
But yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. And most of the time, the person knows it. They know it. They're like, yeah, I did do that. Yeah. I'm like, uh-huh. And you know better, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's anything I need to really talk more about the categories of diseases. I mean, there's always generational karma involved. There's always personal karma involved in all this, but except maybe the one about illness or disease being a learning from your soul to get you to learn some wisdom. That might be something
have an experience.
Yeah.
Have an experience.
Have an experience. Let's see. I'll use my own. Okay. So I was born with a lot of allergies. And I think I was about 7. And my mother was saying, no, you have to stay indoors. You're sick. She always said that. You have to stay indoors. You can't go out in the summertime to play with your sister and brother and the other kids in the neighborhood. You have to stay indoors. You're sick. You're sick. You're sick. I got so mad. I turned around and I said, I am not sick. You're making me sick by telling me that. I'm going outdoors and I'm playing and that's it. And I left. I'm 7. I'm like, what the heck? I thought I was going to get beat for doing that. But I didn't have a single allergy flare for a year. Not the foods I ate, not the pollen I breathed in, because the goldenrod season got me every time back east. Not wool that I was always allergic to by the skin. Nothing. No bumps, no hives, no asthma, no nada for 1 year. That is proof to me that the lesson in this was my soul's telling me I need to take my own power. And I still go there, but that's why the doctors are like, but you have all these allergies. I know, you prick me that, they give me an EpiPen. I'm like, yeah, okay. And they're like, how come you haven't used anything? How come you haven't done this? How come you haven't had any surgeries in your life? I'm like, I haven't needed them. I haven't done anything wrong. And they're like, oh my goodness. They're like, it's unheard of. It's unheard of. I'm like, well, how am I? How's my blood pressure? How's this and that? And they're like, you're fine. Because I took my power back. Am I perfect at keeping my power all the time? No. Who is? We always goof up. We always trip. But it's life. That's what makes life
interesting. That's what we're here for. We're here to experience.
We are here to experience.
Yeah. We have multiple reasons for being here. And quite often, we as metaphysicians, we forget that we're in a human body.
Yeah.
And we came back to experience humanity.
Yes, we came back to experience humanity. We came back to bring humanity, and Earth, all three-dimensional creations, up into the fourth and fifth dimension, up into a higher light. And that's our overall arcing purpose. It may split down to being a healer, a reader, a doctor, a teacher, an artist. We all have different expressions on how that is. We're going to lift up everything. But we're all on this journey, aren't we?
We are. And I'm very, very grateful for everybody that I've ever met. I have found my clients to be some of my best teachers and mentors. And maybe I only saw them one time. Yeah. Maybe I developed a relationship with them. And of course, the people on a personal basis that I have come across throughout my lifetime. And fortunately, I still am in touch with people that I went to junior high and high school with, which was a long time ago. But some had a season. And I can't thank them any more than agreeing to come back and allowing the 2 or 3 or 4 neighborhood to be what we needed to be for each other at the time. I can't say thank you enough. And sometimes it wasn't always nice, but needed to be done.
Nope. Yep. Sometimes it's not a nice thing. Sometimes we have to get strong and right there. All right. So you wanted to know when self-healing is good and when it's not good.
Yes.
When it's avoidance.
Yes.
Okay.
Self-healing. Notice she said self-healing. That's
self-healing.
2 words.
Tricky too. I can give numerous examples on this one. So here's the deal. All right. Everybody's heard of Anthony Williams. He does what he does. He's a great healer. He's a medical medium. He has all those books, etc., that he wrote. Well, I had a client that came to me and he was beet red turning on to purple. And I'm like, this isn't cool. He said, well, I've been healing myself now for over a year with this Anthony Williams stuff, blah, blah, blah. But things are getting worse. His blood pressure was about ready to put him into cardiac arrest, stroke, or whatever, you name it. And I'm like taking a big swallow going, please stop. What? He said, what? I'm self-healing. It's fine. Please stop. I said, you have no idea. The celery juice is full of natural nitrates and it's spiking your blood pressure. He's like, but, I said, no, did you check with anyone? Did you do research on what celery juice really is? Did you do it? No, I didn't do that. I just took his word. Like, okay, self-healing. So I looked at him. I said, well, I tell you, I don't want to do it. I don't want to give it up. I said, I'll tell you what, let's do this. This is where I was getting rid of his avoidance. I said, please listen and just decide, if you can, to stop it for a month and see how you feel. See if your pressure goes down. I'm sure something will change even in 1 week. Well, he said, well, I guess I can try. I said, yeah, you can try it. If not, you can come back and say I'm wrong. Okay? Come on. Well, let's put it this way. He does not do the celery juice anymore. He's a lot better. His blood pressure is lower. And then he's like, well, I want to do this and that now for healing. It was another self-healing course from somebody else. And I looked at him and I said, well, you could. It won't work. He said, why? I said, because you're avoiding the situation you have at home. He did not want to hear that. And I'm like, it's all right. I'm not going to say any more about it, but I want you to really think about your responsibilities and how happy you are or how happy you're not. Just think about that. Because he was using this routine of self-healing, picking this and that from other people to see if they worked. And I'm glad I got to him in time, or else he would have taken himself out of the picture, avoiding the real reason his blood pressure was up, was how unhappy he has been in his world. Now, that's just his particular way. It's not everybody. This is not something for everybody. Not everybody would do that. And Anthony's stuff does work a good 60% of the time for most people. But he was avoiding the underlying issue. Okay. And he was using other people's modalities to try to do it himself. So he didn't have to go to that. Obviously. Okay. The other one, oh, this is another personality one. Her husband and her best friend, which happened to be my roommate at a time, made her come see me. She found a little tiny spot in her armpit, and she wanted me to look at it, and I said, "That's cancer. You need to please go to the nearest cancer center, have it looked at, et cetera, et cetera." And she went, "Nope, I'm going to do this healing. I'm going to do the Gershon theory, and you don't know what you're talking about, Francesca. I know all this." And I'm like, "No, you need to go to the nearest center and have it out." And I'm going on and on, very gently, just like that. Finally, her husband and my roommate, who's also my friend, said, "Look, Betty, she's being very gentle. She's a gentle voice. She's screaming at you to go today to the cancer center to get it out." Well, she hemmed and hawed for 2 more days. The thing tripled by that time.
Ooh.
She finally went into the cancer center. And I said, "Look, you're going to do your healing work while you're getting treated for cancer." Okay. I told her that. She finally went in. They said they don't know how she caught it. It was not bigger than a pea, but it was the most virulent, untreatable cancer on the planet. But they managed to get it out. She did her guide. I guided her with the foods, guided her with the inner therapy, all of that. Boom, she's fine. They moved to Spain. They're having a grand old time. She teaches yoga in different areas of the world. She's around our age, but she was avoiding the information and wanting to go for self-healing. Well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to listen to the other people or the people screaming at you to go do something.
Right.
And we all have seen people who try one thing after another thing to heal something in their body. Now, this does not apply to things like depression or mental illness. This really only applies to what I call physical illness. The avoidance is they're trying to not look at how unhappy they are. That's the bottom line, or what's really bothering them. And here's the thing. I've had clients where we've had to have the talk about avoidance and to stop playing around with these other modalities to get them right back on track with eating healthier and all this other stuff, and maybe certain vitamins. But so here's the thing. Even if you have a job you hate, say your job is uncomfortable, you don't like it, it's hateful, but you can't leave it because you're financially strapped. Just by talking to me about it, now we can start the process of manifesting it differently in your world. In other words, we're going to change the perception. We're going to start using affirmations to soften and bring more peace into the work life, and your body will have a change. And it works. It works for most people, about 80 to 90% of the people. Even if you can't leave a job or a situation, just by getting it out. And I don't mean by getting it out like at a therapist. I mean, okay, let's look at the spiritual reason for this. Why are you always getting sore throats or lower thyroid, etc.? Okay, where's your peace in your world? Where's your money coming from? Are you happy with your job earning it? And then we do affirmations, and I'll hear certain things like, "Oh, you need to say, okay, Betty, you need to believe that everything's on the planet for your good, even the cancer." In other words, love your cancer, right? That was a book that was written. Everything that happens to you is for a purpose. And because she didn't believe that. And so I said, well, let's work on that. So let's change the block on that. And the other thing would be like, and the block would be something like Christy Sheldon Marie's take on it would be like, what would it take for me to release the cancer in my tissues? Anything in the way of that, I uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, dimension, space, and realities. This is something Christy Marie Sheldon does. It's a powerful way to release blocks that you don't even have to know about. You just have to it makes you take responsibility. We know you created it. Let's move it out. Let's whatever. And there's more to it than that, but that's a faster way to power up a affirmation. Okay. Wow. I think my throat's tired. You have any questions for me?
You've used some phrases today that folks that are new to the metaphysical world may not understand. And meditation, believe it or not, is one of them. Even self-healing. That was a beautiful explanation of self-healing. The kicker to self-healing is exactly what you explained this man. He was avoiding what was going on at home. But I have to wonder, did he even know that that's what he was avoiding? Or did he consciously know and consciously just try to fix it so he wouldn't have to talk to his wife? There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that do these things and they don't even know why they're doing them. Right. They don't know what they're avoiding.
It turned out that it was a situation right at home that he had trouble talking about it because we figured, well, with insight from the divine into his past, I saw that it replayed with his parents. So I mentioned his parents and what they went through. And he said, oh, yeah. I said, is that going on again? He said, holy crap, it is. And I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah. We are so unconscious of repeating behaviors. And so there's that. And meditation to me is a form of prayer.
It is to me too. But the difference between prayer, people, I'm going to interject here for just a second. Prayer to me is talking, singing, humming, chanting, a form of vocalization, even if it's in our head. Meditation is being quiet as we can possibly be to hear what spirit has to say, or God, or call it whatever you want to. Yeah. That's the difference to me. And it's confusing to some people who are learning how to do one or the other at the same time.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Meditation is about being receptive to the quiet voice of the divine. And how do we stop our thoughts? Well, one of the practices I've taught people is an old Buddhist trick. When you go walking, just every time you start thinking about your day, stop and look at something beautiful and admire the beauty. Be in awe of the beauty around you.
Good way to do that.
Or laugh. How much thinking are you doing when you laugh? You know,
I've read someplace that you can't think while you're laughing.
You can't.
Or when you have the hiccups.
Right?
You can't think when you have the hiccups.
Right. Maybe that's why we get hiccups. Our soul saying, down, stop that thought, go away.
A way of giving us a spanking on the head.
So walking in beauty, distracting yourself with what's around. It's about, and Yogananda's practices was famous for his work, and his work is still out there. But even if you get a 5-second blank space in your mind for 5 seconds, you will have opened up enough that your soul and the divine can send the information down to you. Even 1 second is a blessing, but 5 seconds would be beautiful. And no one ever expects you to stop thinking. It's just about, can you slow it down, like a laughter? And you're back up thinking again. Nope, slow it down. Oh, thinking again. Okay, just keep at it. Just keep at it.
One of my mentors years and years and years ago, he was not a Buddhist, but he was Korean and just the sweetest neighbor that I ever had. But he said, when I meditate, I go for a walk in my head. And because he couldn't always get out to walk, and a lot of people can't. But he said, if I have a path in my head, I can put on the path whatever I need to. If I need to see a tree, a bush, a person, hear children laughing, I can do it in my head and still meditate. It doesn't get in the way. It's another way of focusing.
Yes.
We just do that. We build the scenery and then we become part of the scenery. And that keeps me focused. I've done that for years. I can see that pretty tree. If I want it to be a cherry tree, I can make it a cherry tree. If I want to see maples turning, I can do that. Even if it's something we've never seen in real, maybe we've seen it in a movie, a book, or whatever, we can bring it to life and become part of the scenery. And as we're walking, we're listening to whatever we've created.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so it works. It works for me. Maybe it'll work for some other folks. Yeah.
Well, it also works if you're trying to go from third to fourth dimension. The use of the mind, the focus of the mind, is what the soul needs to partner with you.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
You're welcome. The mind is our creative tool that the soul, the divine, uses to create the reality. Our hands are another set of tools, but so is the brain.
Yes, absolutely.
It is that interface between the density of this world. It's the interface between the density and this world and the ability to bring it up in light.
I had a client the other day tell me that the meditation and prayer was the only place she ever felt safe.
Yes. Yeah. And what most people don't know is that there's a heart center here, but there's also a heart center in the brain. And
explain that, because a lot of people don't, unless you're studying chakras, you're not going to run into that.
Okay. So the heart center is where your heart is really anchored in the fourth and going into the fifth dimension first. We're all moving from the solar plexus as a human body of humanity. We're moving up into our heart center to start feeling more, being more, knowing that if we hurt someone more, we'll feel it faster. We'll know it. What we really emotionally love will start attracting more of it to us. The mind is the same way. The heart center is in a little bit of called the Plato's cave, which is in the center of the brain. It's below the pituitary and the pineal gland, probably in the corpus callosum area. And there's another energy center there. So basically, you go from your third eye. Whoops. You go from your third eye, draw a straight line back to the middle of your head, and then draw a line where your crown chakra is straight down. It's the intersection of those two lines right in the middle of the brain. And that's where the seat of your soul is. That book that they talked about, the seat of your soul. That's where it resides. That's where there's also another heart chakra there that's tied to the heart chakra here. That's how our soul and the divine information gets in and then splits down, disseminates through our system. So we become more aware of it. That's in a nutshell. There are books that teach this. What could be this thick to this thick. It's huge. It's a huge topic. But in a nutshell, that's what it is. And so Plato talked about this. Like I said, it's called Plato's cave. That particular point in the brain is also, if you did a Fibonacci spiral in the brain, that's where it would end up. Excuse me.
Do you have something to drink?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
Well, we'll wrap this up. Bless your heart. Yeah. You have given us a great deal of your time.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm sorry to leave everybody with a cliffhanger, but maybe next time.
I was going to say, this is your second time with us, and we certainly can have more conversations. I do want to remind you, as a practitioner, if you have things to share with us, like events that you're going to be at or books that you've finished and are publishing, if you're going to be giving seminars, or yes, I'm going to push you until you do that. And if you're just what you're doing in life, where are you? We want to know that.
Well,
We can put it on our page and say, check this out, or go back to her website, or check out her website, see what she's doing these days.
Okay. Yes. My website has my fairs and events that I attend, so you can see me live in person, or you can book an appointment with me on my website online, go by Zoom. And all right, I'll make the list. I'll get you the list.
Thank you. I knew if I said it and pushed it in the right way, you'd do it. Well, we're going to laugh ourselves away. This is Elaine Ireland, reluctantly saying thank you. Not thank you, but goodbye. And I certainly appreciate your time and energy. Again, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I reluctantly want to let you go. That's what the reluctance was about.
May love abound and peace abound to everyone out there.
Thank you for tuning into The Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.